Good afternoon. It's afternoon to me. It's Monday afternoon, August 25th, 2025. And this is the introductory comments for our class, Anthropology 4310, on Native Americans. And I'm just going to introduce you to myself and to what our plans are for the course. And please follow this. There's a second part of this module that is answering our first early questions about Native Americans. So please take a look at that after you see this. Native America is kind of both a murky yet crystal clear topic. It surprises me to no end. We're here in Tyler, Texas, where Smith County has about 250,000 people. Tyler has about 100 and some thousand. And I've given talks a couple of years ago with people downtown at the Discovery Science Place and Museum and at the Chamber of Commerce. And it was on the people who owned Smith County before anybody else got here. And I was both surprised and not surprised to find that pretty much nobody knew the answer to the question of what those people were named. So I had 40 or 50 people in each group and said, what's the name of the people that were here before Europeans? These are 60, 70-year-old people. These are not 10-year-olds. These are adults who lived there, they're here their whole life. They didn't know the answer. Maybe 10% raised their hand and had an answer. Some were right, some were way off. Of course, the correct answer are the Caddo people, who are a tribe of Native Americans who once lived in the Four Corners area of East Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas. And today they've been pushed out of Texas 150 years ago when the Republic of Texas, by the special circumstances of them becoming part of Texas, retained the right that other states don't have to deal with Native Americans as they would. And so today they live in mostly Oklahoma. Of course, like everybody else, my background is completely German. My parents and grandparents all came from the same little town east of Berlin. And I have nothing to do with Native Americans, except it's been a fascinating study of mine for my entire life. Oh, and I should probably introduce me. My name's Tom Gooderjohn. I'm the instructor for this class, and I'm a professor of anthropology at UT Tyler. I've also been involved with Native America for 50 years. First as an archaeologist, trying to fathom out what contemporary people had to do with ancient stuff we were excavating. And then as an anthropologist who had built relationships with many people in Texas. And of course, my research is ancient Maya archaeology in Central America. And that's what I really do. So this is we call it my teaching skill set. I don't publish very much, although I did publish a little book on Texas Indians years ago, on Native Americans here. I publish on ancient Native Americans of Belize. In the next part of this module, we'll tell you a little bit more about who Native Americans are. And of course, that's the focus of this whole class. This whole class is broken into 3 sections. The first is that rich prehistory of Native Americans when they both came to the Americas and when they then later built the cities and civilizations of the Americas that they did build. And then after the year 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, so I guess the year 1500, when Europeans began to become intertwined with Native Americans. There's another kind of history, and that's that history of relationships between two countries, or in this case, many countries and the United States. The diversity of Texas Indians at the year 1500, I apologize for saying Texas, the diversity of Native Americans in the United States at the year 1500 was astonishing. There were probably 2,000 different languages and identifiable groups of people. They were recognized by European Americans as being the legitimate owners of all of these lands that are now the United States. And Texas retaining the right to expel the Caddo people, pretty much that's just what they did, expelled them to the background of our memories here in East Texas and Smith County, because people here don't have reason to think about Native Americans very often anymore. Now, if you go to Oklahoma, you go to New Mexico, Arizona, our near neighbors, where Native America is very, very, very visible and thriving. And I forgot to say Louisiana, but Louisiana too. Everyone knows the answer to who was here before the white people, because they're all over. They're much more hidden here in East Texas. So that's the first two sections, the archaeology of Native America before 1500 AD, and then the history of U.S. and Native American interactions after then until today. And then the third section of this class will be focused on contemporary Native Americans. One of the wonderful things in my life is that I've had the sheer pleasure and honor to get to know Native Americans of multiple tribes well and personally for a very long time. Currently living in East Texas, I am not uncommonly doing things with Caddo Indians of both Oklahoma and other places. And what I learn from them about being human sometimes is astonishing. And I love that part of what we do. So we'll bring that to you as well. Now, each week I'm going to post the rough equivalent of 2 hour and 10-minute lectures. And you should be able to watch them all. There'll also be associated videos. There are also going to be readings, okay? And it's going to be a bit of a slow startup, but once we get going, every Monday I will open the lectures and videos for the following week, and they'll stay open until the next Monday. And then every 2 weeks, we're skipping the first week, so every 3 weeks to start, there's going to be a test, a quiz for you to take at the end of the modules for the week. Okay, so there'll be 6 of those. Every 2 weeks there'll be quite a test. We actually have a 15-week semester. We're skipping a couple of weeks. We've got Thanksgiving, so it ends up being 6. And then also, because these 3 separate modules are very different from each other, we're going to ask you to write a 7-page mini research paper for each of the modules. So you'll be writing one of them for the first section on prehistory, one for the second section, one for the third section, and you'll have plenty of options as to how you'll do that. I will make that clear to you in a session in a few days. So, back to what we're talking about, to wrap that up again, there are going to be, every week, there'll be 2 lectures, some films, some videos, some readings. Every other week, there'll be a quiz or a test, and don't worry, you're not going to have big surprises. I'll explain to you before we get there. And then 3 times in the semester, you're going to write a 7-page paper. That's the expectations I have of you to get an A in this class. And really, honestly, you're going to get an A. You know the deal. if you just simply keep up with things, it won't be a problem. It won't be. One of the things about the Caddo people, and I'll be talking about them quite a bit just because they're on my mind, because they're close, because they're here, because we're friends, is that Caddo people today live mostly in Oklahoma, but in the past they've lived in 3 other states, and there are relatively few descendants in those other states. But I find it interesting that what they regard as their traditional homeland, or at least many of them I've spoken with have said this, is by Alto, Texas, an hour south of us in Tyler, at Cattle Mound State Historic Site. Cattle Mounds, which is really only one still standing, also has a museum, some replica houses, and a staff who does fantastically wonderful programming in support of education for Caddo people and education about Caddo people. They do ceramic making workshops. They have recently done basket making workshops where they brought in artists and craftspeople who'd never done this before, and they tried to figure out how their ancestors did this. And we're now seeing a resurgence of these arts and crafts that are, in a financially sustainable way, sustaining Caddo people today. What does that mean? That's called a revitalization movement. And a revitalization movement simply is such circumstances that happens when you have people who are feeling distant and remote from their culture, and they want their connectivity to be greater, so they revitalize their culture, and they do it through arts, they do it through crafts, and sometimes they do it through violence. All of those and many, many more options are on the horizon. This is a very short recording. I want you to know, though, how to contact me. You can email me through Canvas. You know how to do that. You can email me at my University of Texas email address. It's on the syllabus. The syllabus is up and posted. You can also ask for time to Zoom with me or meet with me in person. One of the things I want to do, because this is an online class, and that means I don't get to see you, and I don't like that. One of the things I want to do is ask to meet with each of you a couple of times during the semester to find out what you're thinking about the class, what we're doing well, what we're doing wrong, and also to find out what we can do to make the entirety of your educational experience here at UT Tyler better than it is already. That's really important to me. That's important to us. Okay. So be in touch with me. I'll be in touch with you. And I'm going to end this now and ask you to follow up by looking at the recording that is immediately behind this.